I'm gonna roll. Let me kill this. I just gotta fix my hair real quick. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees continue to grow their lead in the AL East, padding up the lead there amongst the AL East foes, so we'll do a quick check-in on that. Covered that a little bit in the last episode, but it even gets a little larger for the Yankees, so some positives there, but not everything good news. Unfortunately, the Yankee captain has slipped under 400 a little bit, so I don't know if it's showing some age there, so we'll check in on Judge, who's just a little bit on 400 there. Again, very troublesome, very worrisome, but we'll look at on the situation. But good news on another big man, that's Giancarlo Stanton. Looks like we finally got some sort of timetable when he's kind of expected to rehab and come back and rejoin the team, so we'll look at that situation, as well as shine some positive light on Ryan Yarbrough. He was someone the Yankees kind of picked up just at the start of the season. You really expect much out of him, and through circumstances, inserts into the Yankees starting rotation has been some of it a godsend, so we'll shine some positive light on him. So a lot of good stuff for this episode, but before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of Section 420 Talkin Yankees. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees podcast, subscribe, get my takes on things sooner, so you have to wait a whole week for a new episode. Stuff on the field, off the field, a little Yankee history, a little mixed bag, and it runs all season long, off season, spring training, the whole 9 yards, so get that. As well, if you're watching right now on YouTube or television and you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know why, make sure you hit the subscribe button. So it's somewhere down there a little bit, something says subscribe, there, bing, hit that, subscribe to the channel, get notified when new content comes up. So last episode I kind of covered the Yankees, kind of their standing where they were in the AL East, and sort of my theme was sort of like look at the competition and like all the teams, whether it was Boston, Tampa, Toronto Blue Jays, kind of hovering, around 500 more or less, maybe a game over, a game under. Where the Yankees had a handful of games to get at the time, they're probably about 9 to 10 games over 500. Well, now they've increased that. They're now 33-20 at this point right now, 13 games over 500. And then you look at this rest of the standing in the AL East there. Well, actually, ironically enough, now Tampa has jumped up. They're now the second place team, but they're only second place at 27-26. So there's one game over 500. The Yankees are 13 games over 500. So again, if you just look at the rest of the league there, so at least the rest of the division there, the Yankees sitting in a good space, and they have a 6-game lead in the AL East. And of course, that's the biggest lead for any team in any division of all of baseball. Second one is the Cleveland Guardians, who right now have a 5-game lead in the Central there. But so if you look at the Yankees right now, they're sitting pretty, and really, everything hasn't been rosy. I know you've gotten a really good season out of Max Fried, which we'll highlight him a little bit later in this episode. But if you look at the rest of the starting rotation, I know Rodon's coming on, but other than that, this is without Garrett Cole, it's without Luis Gil, and kind of these Yankees kind of piecing together this, sort of with Schmidt, Will Warren coming on, and of course Ryan Yarbrough, you're getting some good stuff, and you're getting positive areas you would expect it. But if you would have started the season and said you would have had no Garrett Cole, you would have had no Luis Gil, and you would have had no Giancarlo Stanton, you would say no way would you be sitting 13 games over 500 as you're just about to enter June there. You would not see that in a million years now. So you take that part, but of course the Yankees got some positives, as I said before, areas we weren't expecting, where obviously you didn't expect Max Fried to be this good. Obviously you didn't know what you were going to get out of kind of the trio of Clark Schmidt, Will Warren, and Ryan Yarbrough, kind of holding up that starting rotation, which looked like it was going to be in shambles, just about a month or two ago there. And again, getting a season out of like Paul Goldschmidt, you weren't expecting. Getting a season out of Ben Rice, you weren't expecting there. So, some things that kind of hit you just before the season started, where it was like, oh my God, the world's ending there. But then, of course, this Yankee team getting positive out of the areas that were unexpected. But all that being said, the Yankees are going to get some pieces back, and we'll just cover that a little bit later, mainly with Giancarlo Stanton, at some point Luis Gil as well, and of course with Jazz also coming back there. So, as good as this Yankee team right now, has a chance to be much better there. Now, of course, as those positives happen, then you're going to have some unexpected. We'll see. Is there an injury comes out of nowhere? Does Rodon or maybe Fried unfortunately pulls a hamstring, something, they're out for a while? Does someone pull a pec? Yeah, that could all happen here, there. But, the start of the season with those major injuries, I said to like Cole and Giancarlo Stanton, I don't think many Yankee fans would think you'd be in the spot right now. A 6-game lead in the AL East, 13 games over there. So, you have to give a lot of credit, mainly to Boone, of course, and of course Brian Cashman. Everyone's not talking about sort of the plan B is working, the fact that they didn't get Soto, but you're able to get Bellinger, able to get Paul Goldschmidt, and of course Max Fried, and maybe that was just the better things for the Yankees, and at this point, it looks like that's the case. As I mentioned before, the reason that the Yankees are sitting the way they are, because you're getting a surprisingly good season from a lot of different sources. Now, It's kind of hard here who to give kudos more. Of course, Max Fried or Ryan Yarbrough. Okay, we know Max Fried right now is on a tremendous pace right now, maybe on his way to an American League Cy Young. Obviously, I don't want to jinx him too early there, but we will cover him a little bit later in the episode because he's off to an awesome season and doing some historic things. But I got to look at Ryan Yarbrough here because someone you didn't think about much to start the season here. Obviously, he opted out of his deal with Toronto. They told him basically he wasn't going to be on the major league roster. Now this is someone who's been around for a while, kicked around a little bit, a couple of years with Tampa, a couple of years with Toronto. So opposing, obviously, as an opposing player, we're kind of familiar with the name, but we didn't think much of him. This always kind of a journeyman type guy. You didn't really expect much of him. And then again, of late with the Toronto and with the Yankees, at least originally, was a reliever out of the pen, kind of a middle reliever type guy. Again, no one really focused on him, but seeing whatever, he just found his niche right now with the Yankee and with the Yankee starting rotation. So obviously he opted out of the Toronto deal. Brian Cashman came in, swooped him up, and you're like, all right, whatever. We had Tim Hill as a lefty there, and again, the Yankees kind of had a couple of experimental guys like Mazik they brought in there who was hurt at the time. They figured, all right, add in a lefty, why not there? But this through a circumstance, through hook or crook, ends up getting a spot in the Yankee starting rotation, and right now he's been flourishing. So we want to look at his numbers overall. Again, really good for the Yankees. Again, only has had 4 starts so far, but if you want to look at overall, right now, everything, he's 2-0, ERA of 3.06, 35 strikeouts, and overall with a whip of 1.05. Again, this is a 33-year-old you picked up. You didn't expect much. And you look at his stuff there, he doesn't blow you away. I mean, his range, his fastball only tops out at 89. He also mixing a little off speed at 69 there. But he's herky-jerky. He's got all the knee lifts and side arms, kind of sidewinder there, and crafty enough to get hitters out there. And if you just look at his latest start against the Angels there, all right, gives up a home run very early, but then after that sits down 18 of the next 20 batters, goes 6 innings, and again only surrenders that one earned run there. And again, it's a nice, easy, steady start for him. And if you want to look at what he's done lately as a total for the as a starter for the Yankees, again 2-0 as a starter. 2.30, so his work as a starter has even been lower than his overall numbers with the Yankees there. 27 1/3 innings, 20 hits, so he's given up less hits per inning there, which you'd like to see that. 23 Ks in 27 innings, okay, I mean, he's not a strikeout machine, but that's still pretty respectable, and a whip of 0.99 there. So, again, he's having a good season overall for the Yankees in the work he did out of the bullpen and the rotation, but even doing better right now, being in the starting rotation and coming out of time when the Yankees need him. And if you remember the Yankees' words, go way back before, remember at the point where they had a DFA Carrasco, and it was just before Will Warren started to come on. Clark Schmidt hadn't come back yet. Obviously, Stroman with a bad knee. Luis Gil, again, he's someone you weren't going to get back until about June, July. Now it turns out it's going to be more like July. And he's looking at that point there. Starting rotation looked like it was in shambles there. And then you hear that, the Yankees didn't really have a 5th starter at the time because Stroman's knee wasn't responding well. So they're going to use Yarbrough as kind of like, well, he'll kind of be like an opener, kind of, maybe he'll only go 3 or 4 innings and then you have to go to the bullpen there. Well, yeah, it was like that originally, but now he's being stretched out a little bit where he's actually become like a full-time starter now, giving you 5 or 6 innings there and good quality innings. And again, this is not anything he's not familiar with. I mean, before he joined Toronto a couple years ago, he did have 68 career starts as a starter. So he's used to starting games, again, all those years with Tampa. There's this more recently with Toronto and starting off with the Yankees. He was coming out of the pen, but now he looks like he's going back to a start. This might be his best point of his career, even though right now he's at 33 years old. But getting back to my point, it just seemed like the Yankees starting rotation was in shambles at the time. All right, Max Fried was fine. You put him in his own category. But Rendon, after that good start for opening day, it was like 1-3, giving up big chunks of runs there, was not looking promising at all. And the rest of the Yankee rotation was in shambles. Again, Stroman was out with the bad knee. Clark Schmidt wasn't back yet. And if he was coming back, you didn't know what to expect. Will Warren wasn't good to start the season there. And, of course, Carrasco was a little bit up and down, but it got to a point where they had to take him out of the rotation. Now, of course, he's back in the Yankee organization. No one claiming on waivers, but he's in AAA. But still, you just looked at the Yankee rotation. It was in complete shambles. And then it all started coming together. And one of the pieces was Yarbrough. Coming in there, give you good quality innings. Will Warren finally turned it on. That was their first start there out in Oakland. Then he had now 4 good consecutive starts in a row. Clark Schmidt has been back. I say Clark Schmidt has been great, but he's been good. He's been solid there. Just the innings he's been going there. So now you look at the Yankee rotation there, where this looked like the whole ship was about to sink, but now it's stabilized. And of course, Max Fried has been great. And of course, now Carlos Rendon turned it around for himself there. Those 2 on top of the rotation are on fire. And then again, the rest of the 3 guys, pulling their weight there. So you look at the Yankee starting rotation, at one point it looked like it was being an absolute Titanic, but right now it's taking off like a jet. And of course, we're going to talk about Yankee starting pitching. We have, of course, highlight Max Fried. It was this really off to an unbelievably historic start. And again, I don't want to jinx the guy, but again, if he continues this, even if he slipped a little bit, looking like on his way to being the American League Cy Young winner there. Just right now, he's just lights out dominating. Then again, in case you know the numbers, but you probably do, but hear it anyway. 7-0 right now with a sparkling ERA, unbelievable ERA of 1.29. Now, if you want to look at in terms of what he's doing in terms of history, a little bit of Yankee history, and of course baseball history here. So first I'll give you the Yankee one. So right now, his 11 starts, so he holds a record now of his first 11 starts having 2 runs or less there. So that's again a new Yankee record. I think Guidry did something a bit similar in his Cy Young Award season back in '78 there. But if you want to look at all of baseball, how he's dominating there. So since they lowered the amount in 1969, he's the second player with an ERA of 1.5 or less with 7+ wins. Now, he did it this year, and the other guy who did it back in '97 was Pedro Martinez. So, again, he's in a class of Cy Young Award winners. Again, I think Pedro got it with Montreal back in '97, and Guidry got it with the Yankees back in '78 there. So, he's off to a not only historic, but a Cy Young caliber type of start of the season. He's in a scuffle at some point, probably, there. But, again, there's more than you expected from the guy there who, again, just with Cole going down, had to become the de facto Yankee ace. But he didn't see what the pressure got to him at all there. And I know the Yankees had brought in some aces before, such as Garrett Cole, such as CC Sabathia, such as Mussina back in 2001. But really, of all those 3 I just mentioned, again, they all got off decent starts for the Yankees there. But I don't remember anyone dominating like this out of the gate as he did. A couple of them just kind of need a little bit more settle in. Again, Cole was good really early on, the same as Mussina. I don't think they really struggled yet. I think CC might have 1 or 2 blips there early on in '09, but then he got it together, and he gave the Yankees a really good season in 2009, and as well as 2010 there. But still, this start by Fried is probably, I just can't really think of any other, starter really getting off to such a great start like that. We'll see where it all, ends up in the results there. But, even Cole and CC, I don't think were like this good out of the gate there. Again, they were very good, don't get me wrong there, but not like this. This is just like absolutely dominating stuff there. And now it looks like he's mixed in that pickoff move there. So even if somehow by some miracle you do get on base, he'll be able to pick you off. And if you look at the Yankee infield, again, it's not been terrible, but it's also not been great. And we all know Max Fried, he's a ground ball pitcher there. So, if he had like an A+ defense, which he does not have behind him, again, he has a pretty good defense, but it's not A+, he'd probably be more dominating there. But even still, I would still take the Yankee defense right now. It's okay. Again, it could be a little bit better there, but, again, this guy's doing it with not really the greatest defense in the world behind him there, but still very dominant there. So, you like this, keep this going there. Again, at some point, he's going to have a blip on the screen. He's going to have a couple bad starts. Maybe just go on the IL at some point. That's all possible. Again, there's part of the reason a lot of fans were kind of trepidatious about the Yankees signing him was they have a little history of injury with the Atlanta Braves there. But so far, so good. It's been knock on wood for the Yankees there. So hopefully he can stay healthy and keep dominating, because the Yankees are going to need that just because, I know I just mentioned before the Yankees are getting some good stuff out of the bottom of that rotation, but again, you just don't know how long it's going to last. Is Will Warren going to be able to keep this up? I don't know. He's never done this time in the long term. Clark Schmidt's steady. He's okay, but he's not like, great. He is what he is. He's about a number 4, number 5 type starter. And same with Yarbrough. Yarborough's giving some good stuff right now, but how long does that last? We don't know this. So again, it's important to have these guys that are steadies, such as Max Fried, such as Rodon right now. See him coming on. And again, at some point, when Luis Silva joins the team, we'll see where he's at there. But Max Fried at the top right now in baseball, there's no one better. And maybe you're sick of hearing about pitching, so we'll get off the pitcher's mound and get to the field. And it's mainly with Giancarlo Stanton. So finally got some good news on him. Finally have a timetable, at least him way working his back to the team. Now, this week he's going to report down to Tampa, and that's according to Brian Cashman with an interview with MLB Network, saying that he's going to spend the next 2 weeks down in Tampa aggressively taking batting practice, and this is with the Traject machine. Now, I've covered it a few times on the show, the Traject machine, if you're not sure about it. It's a regular pitching machine, but has a trajectory, so if you want to throw a slider, if you want to make the ball curve or throw a split there, it kind of mimics reality, so you don't have an actual pitcher do it, and you just want to pitch in there just laying fastballs, which is great. You want your time in there, but obviously things aren't that easy once you get up to majors there. So the Traject machine there, able to work on other pitches, again, sliders and curveballs and splitters and stuff like that there. So you're not only hitting fastball, you're getting a time with the other pitches as well. Now, since this is kind of a unique situation with Giancarlo Stanton, Boone said they're not fully committed to him actually doing a rehab assignment, so it's possible he just might go from batting practice just to rejoining the Yankees. That's it, with no stint in the minors there. Again, Boone didn't commit to one either way there, but it is kind of interesting. I mean, you think, even as good as the Traject machine is, you could take all the batting practice in the world. At least you want to get like maybe 2 or 3 games, just to get in the swing of things, and then, like sort of what DJ LeMayo did. He kind of spent a couple of weeks in the AA, AAA. He probably wouldn't maybe need as long as DJ would, because again, DJ is kind of also working on the calf injury as well. They just want to make sure the guy can run a little bit. Obviously, not expecting Stanton to run at all, and I'm sure the same rules are going to apply to him as we found out last season, that they basically tell him don't run. So if you hit a ground ball and you think you could beat it out, don't try to beat it out, because you pulling your hamstring or you pulling your calf is not worth it. So he's going to be on the same rules there. So I can at least understand that situation. And if you're not really looking for him to run, then why bother playing the minors? Go right up to majors and start right away. So it is possible there, but at least again we're getting some timetable of him coming back. Now they've had the multiple injections in the elbows. He still has those tears there, what they call the tennis elbow. So that really hasn't healed yet. But there is some discomfort. But again, he's, according to what he said, it's sort of like how he was last season, where he could play through the discomfort and the pain there. So that's the situation. And we saw how good he was in the postseason. Again, probably just up there with Reggie Jackson or like the natural up there. This way, like a hit home run in big moments like that's there. So I don't think he can get that for Giancarlo Stanton, but if he comes back and he's able to at least contribute to his team, that's good there. Of course, again, the Yankees are a little bit too left-handed. I know they got DJ LeMahieu back and you're getting some good stuff out of Goldschmidt there, but kind of really missing that real right-handed power there. So if Stanton could come back, he could definitely provide that. Another piece that's due back for the Yankees, we don't exactly have much of a timetable. That's because Jazz working his way back from that oblique injury, which again, he mentioned that there's a couple of tears in there, which you don't really like to hear. This is that flank. Remember the flank stake there that turned into an oblique injury? Still has the tears there, but working his way back there. But now it's getting a little interesting because, as we all know, DJ's been at second base there and doing a pretty good job, even to the surprise of me. But of course, now they ask Jazz what's going to happen when he comes back there. Is Jazz going to go to second base and is DJ going to move to third, or is Jazz going to have to go to third base like he did last season for the Yankees? So give credit to Jazz. He said the right thing. He said he'll do whatever it takes in terms of if they have to put him back in third base, he'll do it. But he kind of said he feels most comfortable at second base, and that's where he feels that way he should be there. I would almost maybe agree with him. I think again, second base is a little bit of a more athletic position, and obviously Jazz I think could cover more ground than DJ, as well as Jazz has a stronger arm than DJ. And again, I think DJ would be better for third base. You're not asking his body to give you as much range there. We've always had some issues with the calf, with the hip, with the hernia and all that stuff. And even though that's kind of in the past, in the foot there, I don't want DJ beating his body up at second base as much. So we'll see what happens when he comes back. But at least I like Jazz having a positive attitude, not being like Stroman and being stubborn or like what Glamours was, who last season, again, the reason Jazz went third is because Glamours refused to go to third base. So Jazz seemed to be more of a team player there. Now again, he could provide more power. Obviously, we could do with the home runs there, but unfortunately, as I covered in the batting average, it was like 183 there. Obviously, he's got to be, when he does come back, he's got to get that batting average up, and he should be able to. I'm not expecting him to be like a 270 or 275 hitter there, but we saw Volpe early on, he was struggling. He was able to get his batting average up there. Bellinger, who's hovering around 200, he finally got his batting average up a little bit there. So I think Jazz could do the same when he comes back there, but we'll just see what position he puts him in. I'm sure Boone and Cashman are kind of clink their heads or look over the statistics of who could cover more ground and all that stuff there. But overall, I think Jazz is better off at second base. It seemed like he had a little camaraderie going on with Volpe as a shortstop combo there in spring training. I'd like to keep that continue because those two might be there for a little bit. Again, we're not sure what's going to happen to Jazz after this season there, but they're two young guys that kind of rather have that camaraderie, and DJ LeMahieu should be at third base. Now, DJ's been decent since he's been back. Hasn't been tearing the cover off the ball. And if you look at his numbers right now, you're not going to be wowed by them. Hitting .233 with the home run, 3 RBIs, but only 30 at-bats there. So, let's not go, it's only a small handful size there. But at least he's been looking a little bit better. His body looks like it has a bit more life in it than he's had the past couple seasons. But again, he was dealing with all these injuries and poor performance. He actually looks a little bit like his old self, not totally, but, you look at the Subway Series, that second game, that Saturday game looked really good. Again, that's where he had the home run. He was hitting the ball hard, made a good play in the field there. So looked like a better DJ than we've gotten the past 2 seasons. That's kind of all you're going to expect out of him. You're not going to get the DJ from 2018, 2019. We all know that. But if you can at least be competent, give the Yankees good professional at-bats like Paul Goldschmidt does, that's what DJ LeMahieu does. He's just a pure professional hitter. Now, if you look up the Yankee captain, it looks like he might be worried a little bit. He might be struggling a little bit. I know the dream might be over, and I know he was at 400 there, and you figure how long this is going to last. He kind of did it all April. It's like, all right, it'll drop eventually. Then pretty much most of May. It's like, eventually it's going to drop there. Almost like, it was almost become like a joke, almost a cartoon. Well, it looks like reality finally hit. Aaron Judge is no longer a 400 hitter. I know, you're concerned. Is he getting old? Does something happen? Was he using PEDs and now he's not using them anymore? What's wrong? Why is he not hitting 400 there? So we'll look at his numbers there. You got to be concerned about this one. So only hitting 398 It's that's not judging. We expect Judge to be like at least 406, 408, 408, 420 should be hitting there. But a measly 398 batting average. 18 home runs, which is, it's not even junior. He only has 18 home runs. It's terrible there. 47 RBIs, 80 hits. I mean, that's not the Yankee captain that we know there. So we don't know what's going on with Judge. And, of course, you might have saw, I think it was the other week, he had a 326-foot home run at Yankee Stadium. And overall, that's the shortest home run of his career there. So losing power. It's not the same guy. So I don't know. Something's wrong with Judge. Yeah. So a little concerned about him. We don't know what it is. Again, is the pressure getting into him? Is maybe no one's talking about him? Maybe people are talking about Max Fried more than him. And it's hurting him there. So we'll keep an eye on Aaron Judge, but I think he'll be fine. So probably you've been wondering, what happened to Jake Cousins? Not mentioned much there, in the news and stuff. Is he ever going to come back? Again, he was dealing with the right forearm strain from spring training there, and had a couple of setbacks. Never really, get it going so far this season. And again, the Yankees aren't dying to have him back, and overall the Yankee bullpen's been good. But of course, you always like another good quality arm in there. So with Jake Cousins now, they did an image on him recently. They didn't see any sort of structural or anything to be concerned about. And if you didn't hear, on May 24th, he did throw a bullpen session, 30 pitches there, and no setbacks report at this point there. So at least progressing a little bit. You don't know exactly what moment is he going to be able to get in the games and be back in the Yankee uniform. That still seems some time away. And you obviously wait for him to come back, as well as Scott Efros. And of course, we know Fernando Cruz on the IL, but his situation seems to be less dire. He should be back by early June. But of course, Efros and Cousins, two pieces. Again, you're not really, Yankees aren't in dire need for them, but you always like some fresh arms in there because, guys get tired out a little bit, and Hamilton's kind of up and down a little bit there. So it's you're going to get out of Del Santro sometimes there. So you always want to get some extra arms in there. So they are working his way back, but it's still going to take a little bit more time. Now, when it comes to a little closer to the trade deadline, you never know, Rabbit Cashman to pull out of his hat. Doesn't seem like he'll be looking for a bullpen guy because I think the Yankees should be fine there with some of those pieces I mentioned coming back. Again, he's always looking for a great deal, and if there's an arm out there he could get to add, I'm sure he'll do it. But according to Bob Nightingale, now this is a report that came out on May 25th, that the Yankees are looking for a right-handed bat, preferably a third baseman, and another starter. So even though Luis Gil's coming back, looks like the Yankees still will also be on the market to bring another starter in anyway, even with the good innings you're getting out of both Schmidt, Warren, and Ryan Yarbrough. Maybe look for more of a, kind of a, I don't say a competent starter, but someone more dependable. You go insert there because, again, we don't really know if Luis Gil is going to come back. They say in July, but you don't know exactly what condition he's going to be in. So looks like Cashman's on the hunt for a starter. But again, getting back to the third baseman, again, a right-handed hitter, but preferably a third baseman, which you figure, well, isn't that DJ LeMahieu? And then if that's the case, are they really, do they have much faith in LeMahieu that he could really, obviously contribute to his team in a big way? Kind of interesting there. Now, I don't really know what third baseman out there on the market is reasonable that you could bring in here who would kind of fit that mold. So I kind of looked at a couple of options, both in the American League and the National League. Now, one possibly would be Josh Young from Texas. Now, he's hitting 281, 7 home runs with 19 RBIs. Now, after this year, he has 3 years left of arbitration, which means what he's contributing right now is relatively peanuts there. So if Texas is going to give that up, they're going to want a lot back. I just don't. I think the asking price on that would be too high. So yeah, I would like to have him, and he would fit the bill. He's a right-handed hitter we're looking for. Again, I mentioned 281, 7 home runs. Obviously these days no one hits 300 anymore. So a guy hitting 281, that's actually pretty good. And again, gives you that right-handed, and he's also a third baseman that would fit there. But he's not a free agent until 2029. You have 3 years of arbitration left after that. I don't know if Texas is going to let a guy like that go. Usually let a guy go when he maybe has 1 more year of arbitration after his contract, so it makes it juicy. But for 3 years, I mean, again, he's still relatively a bargain. He's 27 years old. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the asking price on him would be too high, so I don't see that as a possibility. Now, you do have Miguel Vargas of the Chicago White Sox, so, hey, maybe the White Sox are willing to deal. Obviously, they're terrible. They're going to be looking to a lot of chips to build around, even though he would kind of be part of the future. He's a young guy. He's only 25. But if they could get a bunch of prospects back from the Yankees, that might be a better thing. Maybe they'd be willing to deal. So we'll look at his stats for a moment. So batting average, not as good, but 239, but has the power, 7 home runs, and 23 RBIs. And again, he's only 25 years old, but same thing. He's going to be arbitration for the next 4 years after this. So, Chicago, that's a relatively bargain for a third baseman. Chicago is going to want a boatload back, prospect back to get a guy like that under control. So again, I just think the asking price is too high. I don't see that as a possibility. And of course, we have the old favorite in the National League, and that's Nolan Arenado, who can at least be a little bit more reasonable. He makes a lot of money. So therefore, the Cardinals won't be in a position of power where they could demand a lot from the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees want to give up, you have to give up something to get a guy. I mean, it's still a good quality third baseman. I know he's getting a little bit longer in the tooth, a little bit older there, but still, he's still, with the money he's making, the Yankees don't have to give up as many prospects. So that might be the more realistic thing. And it seemed like there was a little noise that was going to happen during the offseason. It didn't fall apart. The Yankees just kind of stuck with the whole combo of, Peraza and Cabrera, and, at that point, you didn't know DJ was going to get hurt, but you figured DJ and kind of have a little competition there at third base there. So, Arenado could that, again, of all the three I just mentioned there, that seemed to be the most sensible because he's making a lot of money, he's under control, and again, the Cardinals aren't going to ask too much for him, so the Yankees don't have to give it that. So if the Yankees are going to make a move in the area, that would probably make the most sense. Now, is there someone, Cashman has an eye on that I'm not even thinking about right now? Sure, that's all possible, but I just don't think, those other options I mentioned there, the Yankees would have to give up a lot to get them because they're young and they're under control for the next couple of years, so those teams could demand them more. So I don't see that as a possibility. Will the Yankees shop around? Possibly. Again, offense hasn't been the Yankees' problem. Yeah, sure. Would you like a healthy, reliable, good quality, everyday third baseman there? The Yankees really haven't had that in a little bit of a while. Yeah, you would like that. But again, I just don't think the Yankees are in a dire need to make a move like that and give up a lot of prospects. Again, you had to give up a lot to get Soto as well as Trent Grisham. Now, I think that trade was worth it. At least it got you a shot at the World Series there. But I don't know if the Yankees are going to do one of those kind of deals again. Again, you're not going to get a Soto type of player there, but you're going to have to give up a lot of prospects to get one of the kind of two guys I mentioned there. I don't think the Yankees are in that position. Arenado, okay, that might be a possibility we see there. Or you just kind of let things play out a little bit. Maybe DJ takes off a little bit. Again, he's been okay since he's been back. Not great, but not a point where, again, the Yankees offense is in dire need where you have to get a third baseman because there's not, again, enough power. The Yankees have enough power from other positions there. And, of course, you're going to get someone like Stanton just around the corner soon there. So offense hasn't been the Yankees' problem there. So I'm not too sure if the Yankees really give up too much to get a third baseman, but it would make sense. And if that's a possibility, again, Arenado would probably be the best option. As we get close to the end of the episode, I guess we'll do a little Yankee Stadium business. Now, I'm not big on these things, but people love them. So in case you haven't marked it on your calendar, Friday, June 6th, that's going to be Yogi Berra. It's the U.S. Navy bobblehead doll. So not just, Yogi Berra in a Yankee uniform, but in his Navy uniform. Now, you might ask, why are they doing June 6th for the bobblehead for Yogi Berra in the Navy? Well, in case you didn't know, Yogi Berra did serve in the U.S. Navy, and on June 6th, which is D-Day, Yogi Berra was there on D-Day, so he was actually in the infamous war there. So it's just fitting if you're going to have Yogi Berra in a Navy uniform, bobblehead day, you have it on June 6th there. So, this one, you're going to have to line up 3, 4 in the afternoon there. Again, I'm not into this stuff, but people do. So if you do happen to get a ticket, and it's against the Red Sox there. So again, the Red Sox not great there, but of course it's the old rivalry. So, not more fitting for a day to have a Yogi bobblehead there and to play the Red Sox there. So it's perfect fitting, but you're probably going to have to get there super early. So if you're down with that stuff, you like doing that stuff, make sure you get to the stadium very early. And now the Yankee Stadium news and kind of unfortunate news, the Billy Joel concert has been canceled, in case you didn't hear. That was one who was going to be double billed in July with Rod Stewart. Now, they put out a statement canceling the whole thing. Look, you might think, well, can this Rod Stewart do this show? I mean, look, Rod Stewart's great, but he's not going to fill up Yankee Stadium, and you're not going to go to Yankee Stadium to see Rod Stewart. It's something like you see at Vegas or something like that. Again, he could fill up a lot of big places there, but he's not filling up Yankee Stadium. The whole idea was Billy Joel, the piano man, coming back to the Bronx and Yankee Stadium. That was the whole deal. So unfortunately, it's all that. Now, he's dealing with a condition, NPH. Now, you might think, what is that? So this is the Section 420 Talkin Yankees medical report there. So it's the normal pressure hydrocephalus. So basically what happens is that you got this brain fluid in the brain builds up and it goes against your skull and the brain and gives you cognitive, knocks you off balance. So obviously, he can't perform and play music and talk like that. So kind of a disorder. He's been dealing with it. Now the good news is it is treatable, and even better news, 76-year-old said he's not retiring. So it looks like, he can recover, but he's pretty much canceled all his concerts for the rest of the year, which included the Yankee Stadium one. Now getting back, the reason is kind of interesting is that July 11th, they were going to have a Billy Joel bobblehead also for him. That was a game against the Cubs there. Now, no word yet if they're going to cancel the bobblehead. Do you go on with it? Because the whole idea that was going to be a week before the concert there, or do you shelve it and say, hey, look, if you reschedule everything to have a concert next year or the year after, you have all these bobbleheads in the factory ready to go. So no word yet if you can get rid of the bobblehead or not. I don't know how you handle that one. I say you just give the bobbleheads out anyway there, because if it does come back a concert, you just do the concert. You don't need a bobblehead there. So again, no official of that bobblehead, but if you want to mark that calendar, well, that game is July 11th against the Cubs. That's the Billy Joel bobblehead day. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the audio podcast version of Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And we'll catch you next time.